Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is DJ, and welcome to Austin's Anfield Angle, Episode 3, your only AAA grade Liverpool FC podcast where passionate copites resonate. We've got a great show in store for you today. We're going to be talking about the game that passed last weekend, the big game between the first and third place team, Liverpool against Arsenal last week. We're going to dive into the game performance, some key moments, the key players, some statistics, and even dive into what we think how it would impact the long-term season for both teams. We're also going to touch on Liverpool's midweek Carabao Cup game against Brighton, where Liverpool traveled to the Amex Stadium. Liverpool beat Brighton by 3-2. We're going to touch a little bit more about that. And of course, we are going to dive into the game coming up this weekend, which is Liverpool playing at Anfield against Brighton again, this time in the Premier League instead of the Carabao Cup. So, and of course, referring to the poll that I've seen from the last few podcasts, I understand that there has been some information where people have highlighted topics that they would like us to talk about, and it looks like following the last couple of polls that we've put out there, it looks like the next topic that people are interested for us to talk about is Arne Slot so far. So we will spend a little bit of time talking about what Arne Slot has done and how we believe his tactics are being implemented and some new rules that he's implementing in the team and how he's carrying the team. Speaking of which, Arne Slot has been nominated for the Manager of the Month award. And I think it might be his second nominee already. He did win it once already, if I'm not mistaken. So we will dive into that a little more later on in the show. All right. So without spending any more time on introductions, let's dive right into the first sector of the show. We will talk about last weekend's Premier League game at the Emirates Stadium, where it ended 2-2 between Arsenal and Liverpool. Bukayo Saka gave Arsenal the lead on 9 minutes, only for Virgil van Dijk to equalize 9 minutes later. And Arsenal eventually took the lead through Moreno in the 43rd minute, just before halftime. I think that goal was being debated by the VAR team, whether it was onside or offside, and I have my own opinion on how VAR is really being implemented right now. I definitely think that decision should have been made a lot quicker. We do know that the goal eventually stood. Arsenal went into halftime leading the game 2-1. And of course, in the second half, Arsenal were still a very big threat, but I think Liverpool did manage to contain them, especially on the counterattack and especially on the wings. Bukayo Saka was a little more quiet in the second half, and eventually we did see Mohamed Salah getting the equalizer thanks to a great pass from Trent Alexander-Arnold, opening up Darwin Núñez on the right side of the wing, and he made a great pass, giving it a ball straight into Mohamed Salah, where he placed it in the bottom corner. A little more detail on the performance so far. So we touched on Bukayo Saka. So on Bukayo Saka there, the statistic that was achieved by him over the weekend was becoming the youngest Arsenal player ever to achieve 50 Premier League goals, and he's achieved it at the age of 23 years old and 52 days. The other players on that list The number one players is actually Robbie Fowler, who's the youngest to achieve that achieve 50 goals, and that was done at the age of 20 years old. Michael Owen closely behind him with 20 years and 256 days. Wayne Rooney at 21 years old. Romelu Lukaku at 22. Ronaldo at 22. Harry Kane at 23 and 44 days. And Bukayo Saka achieved it, as I said, 23 years old and 52 days. So, I mean, it just shows what a talent this young man is. He, in the game, of course, he was dominating that left wing. He was giving Andy Robertson a lot of trouble, cutting inside, cutting back outside. Even the goal he scored, it was actually a fantastic run with that explosiveness down that line. And as he controlled the ball, as Andy Robertson was trying to close him down, he actually controlled it while nutmegging Andy Robertson. And within a split second, he took the shot straight past Coleman Kelleher. So Saka, definitely a great talent there. He definitely gave Liverpool a hard time. I think in the second half, Liverpool did go with I want to say Costa Simicas in left back, sort of try to tighten things up a little more. Luis Diaz, who was actually on the left wing in the first half, got substituted some part in the second half with Cody Gakpo. And we have seen this where Arne Slot really would use Gakpo instead of, he'll use him pretty interchangeably on the left wing, and he does have a high work rate, tends to drop down a little more as compared to Luis Diaz. Luis Diaz is very, very creative and, a trickster, a very, very good dribbler down the wing. Very hard to keep him contained, but his defensive work may not be as disciplined and industrious as Cody Gakpo. And we could see Arne Slot understand that, and that's why he made that change in the second half. So that was definitely a good move to help contain Arsenal a little more. That was actually one of the key moments when Liverpool was actually turning the table around in that second half. As we said, the halftime score was 2-1 to Arsenal. In the second half, Arsenal could not score again. Liverpool did equalize through Mohamed Salah. And let's touch a little bit on that. Previously, we talked about Mohamed Salah, where he has actually now scored his 163rd Premier League goal for Liverpool, taking him to 8 in the overall rankings. Very, very impressive. I mean, there was a lot of talk when Liverpool first signed him in 2017. People were saying that he's a one-season wonder when he did that outstanding 44 goals or 45 goals in that first season. But, despite the age, he's 32 years old. He's managed to stay consistent at the highest level of intensity. He's playing almost every game. I knock on wood when I say this, but, he's never really gotten a serious injury, and thank God for that. He's always kept himself fit and looked after himself. So Mohamed Salah, he didn't have too many chances through the game. But there were some moments where he did, but unfortunately, Arsenal defended really well against him. But then again, he is one of those players where he just needs one chance and he will make it count. He's been a little wasteful in previous seasons under the Klopp's era. Sometimes a little reluctant to make passes. He's a little selfish at times. And I've heard various comments about Mohamed Salah, but he is just so good at what he does. He's got such devastating pace. He's got a great pass on him. He's got great vision. He knows how to finish. He's got the composure in the box. He's scored some crazy goals for Liverpool over the years. And I definitely think, with Salah still in the team, he definitely is a leader, given how well he's performed. given how well he's performed in the previous seasons, Mohamed Salah is definitely a key player for Liverpool, and with all the contract talks about renewal being rumored right now, Liverpool will definitely want to keep him for the next couple years, as that will help them transition and grow and develop other players, because he can be a great mentor to the team. So Mohamed Salah, yes, he definitely scored the equalizer, but let's give credit to somebody else here. Darwin Núñez. He created the chance. He had some really good moments in the game. He's the one that made the assist for Salah to score that goal. He made that run, and Captain Chaos, as they used to call him last season, he has actually created so many opportunities despite only playing significantly less games as compared to Cody Gakpo and being only engaged as a sub on some of the games. He definitely had the composure. It's great to see Darwin, have a little more maturity. I think in the first couple seasons under Klopp, you saw he was a little bit chaotic and clumsy with the ball, and taking shots out of crazy ranges. And don't get me wrong, he did score some ridiculous goals, but sometimes it's about decision making for professional players, right? You only get one chance or half a chance sometimes in these games, and you want to make them count. So definitely that's something maybe Arne Slot's looking into. You can see Darwin Núñez has taken a little more composed approach to his game style. He's not as I can't say the word intense, because he is intense when you play against him. And you can see how he closes down players and the opponents. But maybe one thing that's different is because of how Liverpool press right now. You can see Darwin Núñez picking his moments. He is choosing to press in an angulated run rather than just closing straight down. Something he's probably learned with Klopp before, but now maybe Arne Slot is sharpening that edge of his skill to make him more effective. And he's probably not going to have to work as hard as he used to, because Arne Slot's team is definitely a team that looks to stay calm and keep its composure when they're under a lot of pressure. That was not very evident throughout most of the game, but we can definitely see that, in the second half, Liverpool were a lot more composed. Van Dijk and Konate were winning the challenges. They were, a lot more in control as compared to that first half, where it was a little nervous, being a Liverpool fan watching the game, seeing Andy Robertson being cut open that easily. And of course, on the other side with Gabriel Martinelli, he was taking advantage of Trent stepping up and stepping into midfield, leaving gaps on that right-hand side. Martinelli definitely took some advantage and took some attempts to dribble past players, but Konate shut him down pretty easily. So that was really good. Overall, I think it was a fair result. A very cagey game. Most of the game was very closely fought, especially in that first half. Was a little bit nervy for a Liverpool fan. Much better performance in the second half. Liverpool, again under Arne Slot, showing great character, showing great resilience to keep fighting back to try and get a point. I definitely think it's a point. Well earned for Liverpool. If you told Arne Slot that you would be traveling to the Emirates and he'll be taking a point away, he would have bitten your hand off if you offered that deal before the game even kicked off. Arsenal definitely a bit more disappointed. It's a very well-drilled Arsenal team under Mikel Arteta. They would have definitely wanted all 3 points, but given Liverpool's strong fight back in the second half and how they actually closed down spaces a lot better, I think it was overall a very fair result to end as 1-1. That result puts Arsenal in third place Liverpool in, I believe, second place, and Manchester City going top with that result. Of course, Man City are only 1 point on top with 23 points, and Liverpool probably on 22, and Arsenal on 18. So that's what the top three looks like right now. And that wraps up the first segment of our show. We'll be taking a very short break here, and when we come back, we'll be talking about Liverpool's game against Brighton in the League Cup or Carabao Cup. And then we'll touch on the other topics in the next two sections following that. We'll have a little bit of a pre-game discussion about Liverpool versus Brighton in the Premier League this coming weekend. And we'll have a short conversation about Arne Slot's performance and his nomination for Manager of the Month. All right, so we'll be taking a very short break, and we will speak to you guys soon. All right, welcome back to Austin's Anfield Angle, Episode 3. So we're talking about the next topic today. That is the League Cup competition between Brighton and Liverpool that happened on Wednesday afternoon. Liverpool beat Brighton by 3-2. 2 goals from Cody Gakpo and 1 from Luis Diaz. Brighton had a goal in the 81st minute by Adingra and Lamptey, making it a bit of a nervy finish towards the end of the game. Both teams definitely made a lot of changes, given that it's a very common pattern in the League Cup, the Carabao Cup as it's known for nowadays. Both teams made approximately 8 changes. Players like Yaros came in goal. Gerald Kwanzaa stepped into center defense with Joe Gomez. Connor Bradley made his first appearance after almost 6 weeks out with injuries. Wataru Endo stepped into the defensive midfield role, giving Ryan Gravenberch an opportunity to rest in midweek. And Tyler Morton was a surprise inclusion in the game. He was not featured very frequently in the first 12 games we've had so far, and he certainly did do very well in his performance in center midfield. Of course, he was lacking a little bit of fitness. We could see through the game, but that wasn't too evident to some of the other players who were around him, and that certainly helped provide a good overall team performance. 2 goals from Cody Gakpo. He seems to be enjoying himself in this competition. He scored 4 in consecutive games in this competition to help the Reds last year, where they eventually beat Chelsea in the final. Liverpool are the defending League Cup champions. They have won it the most times as compared to any other English club. I believe it might be 10 times now they've lifted this trophy. So once again, it was a very good composed performance from Liverpool. We definitely have a few points to note here. First and foremost, Coleman Kelleher was rested, and Yaros was given an opportunity to step into the starting 11. He definitely impressed very early on, I think in the 12th minute, where he had to make important one-on-one save against Lamptey. He had rushed out quickly enough where he closed down the angles. Lamptey had a one-on-one chance, and he eventually blocked the shot. I can imagine what kind of game it would have been if Liverpool had gone a goal down that early on, putting a lot of additional pressure on themselves, making it a very much an uphill battle to climb out of that situation. The other surprise I would like to touch on was noticing Andy Robertson, who was included in the starting 11. Most of the time you want to keep your starting 11 players rested, and I was a bit surprised to see Robertson kept in the squad, but after thinking about it in a little more detail, I realized that, Robertson didn't have a great game over the weekend, and he's one of the most experienced players we've got in defense right now, especially in that left-back position. Andy Robertson probably would have been a good option to be rested. However, Arne Slot chose to go with him on that left back position instead of using Kostas Tsimikas. Thinking about this, maybe Robertson's poor performance over the weekend against Arsenal may have changed Arne Slot's decision over there. He would have wanted, typically as a professional player on any position, whenever you do have a poor performance, you do want to get right back onto the field and try and redeem yourself. And in this case, I think Arne Slot has maintained his trust in Andy Robertson, putting him on the left back position and giving him the captain's armband for the day. It also makes sense when you do have so many changes, especially in defense with Trent missing, Konate missing, Van Dijk, who's normally there. Robertson was actually probably one of the most experienced players in the team. You do want someone in defense to be aware about how to organize your wall, how to organize your spacing between your goalie and your center defense, and how you close the gap between defense and midfield. So given the younger players on the other side may not have been as experienced as he was, I think having Robertson in there was pretty good overall. He did have a significantly better performance as compared to what he did over the weekend. He closed down spaces really well. He pushed up. He made some good crosses in. He tracked back. He wasn't caught out of position. Held the offside line really well. And overall, a very good, strong performance from Andy Robertson over here. Definitely, redeeming himself after the weekend performance. The other player just want to quickly touch on was Jarrell Kwanzaa. So Jarrell Kwanzaa is actually a little bit of interesting conversation piece, given that he was initially ahead of the pecking order, ahead of just behind Van Dijk, and that was at the time, especially towards last season, he was our favorite, or well, not favorite, Jurgen Klopp's favorite choice to pair with Virgil van Dijk in defense. However, when Arne Slot came in, we noticed that he did initially have him in the first game, but he was taken off very quickly, and Arne Slot gave reasoning given that he lost too many aerial challenges with losing headers, so he took him off, and I think Jarrell Kwanzaa has not really stepped back into the starting lineup ever since, not even made a substitute's appearance since then. A little bit surprising considering how well he performed under Jurgen Klopp last season and the season before. I think he's a very quick, young defender. He's very tall and big. Reminds me a little bit of Virgil van Dijk. And I think the other thing is, Jarrell Kwanzaa needs to be partnered with a very experienced center back. So when he does play with Virgil van Dijk, he does perform a lot better. Probably also because Van Dijk is a really strong leader in defense. He's always giving instructions, always checking on his goalkeeper and checking in midfield. He's always making sure the players are in the right positions, holding the offensive line, holding the defensive line, keeping the offside trap very much active in most cases. And in this case, Jarrell Kwanzaa, he probably did not perform as well in that first few games of the season, or the first game of the season that was the only appearance I believe he had. And this Wednesday was actually the first time we saw him come back into the starting 11. He definitely played well. I don't think he did too much wrong here. He definitely got back some of his confidence, I believe, given that he was dropped from the squad previously. He didn't do too much wrong, and definitely a good performance overall. Definitely giving him a little more, confidence to come back and work harder and hopefully try and make his way back into that starting 11. Liverpool, we always have high competition between our players, and that's always a good thing. It keeps everyone on their toes. So hopefully you see Jarrell Kwanzaa come back into the starting 11 in the coming weeks. Other than that, we also saw Curtis Jones playing in a very different position. I think this time for the League Cup game, we definitely think that Arne Slot was trying a little bit of an experimental formation, Most of the times, the way Liverpool lined up in that game, it looked like it was a 4-2-4 with Morton and Endo in two holding midfield positions. Diaz on the right-hand side, Gakpo on the left wing, where he's most of the time preferred, and Soboslai and Jones playing up front. We typically saw that formation once in a while with Jurgen Klopp, when he was pushing for a goal or something like that. In this case, it was something a little different. We've not really seen this kind of a formation from Arne Slot. We know that he's usually more of a composed possession type manager where he likes to keep the ball, build the game from defense, and eventually progress the game and transition into midfield and then launch attacks. Not very much a counter-attacking team as per Jurgen Klopp's time. Definitely, this was something very different. Soboslai, at sometimes I feel that he was a little. He brings a lot of energy to the team, but he was definitely a little out of position. He was not. We were having Roberto Firmino in that false nine position a few years ago, and we've never been able to replace him really, or how that position should be played. Soboslai in this case was trying to step into that false nine role, sort of like a number 10 and a false nine, gravitating more towards a number 10 given that's his natural ability. But the best thing about having Soboslai in there was the energy he brings, the intensity he brings, and the aggression he brings into that midfield. Curtis Jones, a similar kind of player, but a little more flair and passing ability to his game rather than just explosiveness and energy and power in this case compared to Soboslai. Both players did fairly well. But I think eventually, Soboslai was replaced by Darwin Núñez, I think, towards the end of the game, just so he can rest up for the upcoming weekend where Liverpool do play Brighton again. This time it's going to be at Anfield. It will be a Premier League game. And we will be touching a little more on that one very shortly. So we're going to be taking a very quick break again, and when we come back, we'll take a closer look at the build-up to Liverpool versus Brighton this weekend, where it'll be held at Anfield, and we're going to expect to be seeing significant amount of changes, and we'll definitely be seeing the likes of Mo Salah, definitely Darwin Núñez, Van Dijk coming back into the team for that weekend, probably McAllister, and maybe Tsimikas, instead of Robertson, or maybe Robertson might keep his place. So anyway, we'll take a deeper dive into the build-up to that Premier League game and what we can expect to see from Liverpool against Brighton this weekend at Anfield. We'll be right back after a short break. All right, welcome back, guys, to Austin's Anfield Angle, and this is Episode 3, and we are back. And we're going to talk about the build-up to the Premier League game at Anfield, where Liverpool take on Brighton, only 65 hours after just playing at the Amex in the reverse fixture for the Carabao Cup. Of course, the Carabao Cup had multiple changes to a regular starting 11 from both sides, so we can definitely anticipate for this return game, for this Premier League game, to see, the likes of Mohamed Salah, Darwin Núñez, Coleman Kelleher, Van Dijk, all returning to starting lineup. We definitely would be able to also see similar stars from Brighton's team come back, like Danny Welbeck, who resumed taking his place up front. I also do note that, that this is probably a very common team where you see repeat fixtures, especially in the Premier League and other professional leagues as well. It is very common for teams to play one another in the space of 48 hours. I think a couple seasons ago it was Liverpool and Arsenal in the Carabao Cup, and as well as Liverpool and Manchester United played off one another in I think the Europa League and maybe even the Premier League several seasons ago during the Jurgen Klopp era. Anyway, let's get back dialed into the actual game and what to expect. Um, in my opinion, I think Mohamed Salah is going to be a key figure once again. He has had 15 goal involvements out of 14 games in this fixture. Goal involvements meaning it could have been either been assists or goals scored. He has been performing very well this season already, and I think we will see some important contributions from Mohamed Salah, Darwin Núñez, and Luis Diaz in this game. Probably Luis Diaz might be given a rest, given he started midweek. I do know Andy Robertson may be given a rest as well, given the fact that he just played against Brighton midweek in the Carabao Cup. Of course, we are going to be expecting to see players like Ryan Gravenberch return to center midfield. Wataru Endo, even though being very impressive, he may be rested once again. Or, Arne Slot may even choose to tweak and maintain some of the midweek players. So we have some interesting choices there to look forward to what Arne Slot will decide on. Definitely, Arne Slot will be hoping to see a less chaotic performance from his Liverpool team this weekend. Last weekend, they did have a bit more of a tough time taking on Arsenal, where they were being stretched. They were being put under a lot of pressure. Somewhat chaotic at times, a little nerve-wracking in defense, panic clearances. We saw all that, and probably it's just because of how Arsenal took on the game. The draw last weekend definitely saw Liverpool give up their top spot in the Premier League. Of course, but if they do win this weekend, they could leapfrog Manchester City, and regain that top spot. Brighton have definitely been performing really well under manager Fabian Herzler. Hope I got that name right. But they have had a few setbacks in the past week. Of course, Wednesday's defeat and a recent implosion when they played against Wolves, where they conceded in the 88th and 93rd minute to give up a 2-0 lead and ending up drawing that game. So they would want to have a bit of a reaction from that. In terms of team news, Liverpool are still without Alisson, Harvey Elliott, and Chiesa. Of course, Diogo Jota is still not likely to return anytime soon. Most likely all these players would be most likely coming back after the November international break. The good news is that Arne Slot did welcome back Connor Bradley in midweek after a long injury, giving Trent Alexander-Arnold a much-needed break, which we do expect Alexander-Arnold to return to starting lineup this weekend. So that will be one position we can be pretty confident he would step back into. Cody Gakpo has taken his chances, and he's always performed when selected ahead of Diaz, and we can always definitely count on Arne Slot trying to rotate some of his players once again, just to juggle the intensity of the Premier League schedule for some of these players. We do know some of these players are trying to regain full fitness. Some players did not get to play as much recently, so they're regaining some form and they're trying to recover from injuries and reestablish themselves into that starting 11. And you know how it is with a new manager and a team, every player wants to impress, so Arne Slot will definitely be looking into keeping his team fresh, but not chopping and changing too much where it actually impacts the team chemistry for the performance. All right, so in terms of predicting lineups, I definitely think we could expect a typical 4-2-3-1 formation. Kelleher, Trent, Konate, Van Dijk, all returning to that back four. Possibly only Tsimikas might step in for Robertson, but that will be something we'll have to see on the weekend what happens. Gravenberg back in midfield, McAllister back in midfield. Soboslai should regain his spot. And of course, that front three will be Salah, Nunez, and either Diaz or Gakpo, one of them. So look forward to seeing that. In terms of Brighton, I definitely think, Matt O'Reilly and João Pedro are back in training, and Lewis Dunk is also edging closer to a return, but they may or may not start the game. They may still miss the game depending on fitness or unless it's a last-minute choice. Adam Webster, James Milner, and Solly March are all sidelined, which they will miss the game. We all remember James Milner. He played a good 8 years with Liverpool or something like that. But they're all most likely not going to be available for the game. The anticipated lineup would be very similar, 4-2-3-1. I don't know if there'll be too many significant changes. Definitely Mitoma, Welbeck, Estupian. Most of these guys would be making their way back into the team. And we will definitely expect a hard-fought battle between the two teams. Just expecting it to be a little more of a counterattack, end-to-end game. We already touched on some of the statistics on goal contributions and what is their typical style of play. And we definitely would anticipate a very entertaining game. It always is when it's Brighton against Liverpool, so that is something we're pretty excited about. All right, guys, so now we've come into the final section of the show. We're going to be talking a little bit today about Arne Slot and, a little bit about his coaching philosophy and how well he's done to date. And also, just highlight the fact that he has been nominated for Manager of the Month award. He did win it once already, and this is maybe his second time winning it after a really good month of October. So let's talk a little bit about Arne Slot's tactical formation and philosophy. We do know that he's a very calculated and meticulous man, which has a special approach to possession football. He believes in patient build-up play, high-intensity pressing, aimed to establish control and achieve tactical superiority. Unlike Jurgen Klopp's style, Slot has a strategy where he prioritizes technical finesse over physicality and emotion. He definitely prefers employing a 4-3-3 formation or a 4-2-3-1. But sometimes that fluctuates into a 4-2-4 formation during build-up phases. His style really focuses a lot on tactical traps rather than relentless pressing, which we saw under Jurgen Klopp before. He's definitely a person where he likes to set up his team to dominate possession and, try and lure opponents into, offside traps and get them into little pockets where they get caught in the counter and, through precise ball handling movements, he tries to open up spaces and create rapid transitions into their attack. His strategy, typically integrates maintaining a high fitness level, and of course Jurgen Klopp's style was very similar. But he's also instilling a psychological resilience in the team that typically tries to complement his tactical framework. The use of fullbacks are a little bit similar to what we've seen with Jurgen Klopp. They're pivotal in the setup, and they often invert into a dynamically outward position to bang crosses in, and sometimes they would invert into the midfield allowing the other players to push up front wide. Players like Gravenberg and Soboslai from midfield. He does like to focus also on developing young players rather than signing big name players. A good example is young Kuba Minte, who has 9 contributions in 9 games, who's currently on loan from Newcastle. This person, I believe, played in Feyenoord. And of course, some other examples include Mats Weaver and David Hanko, who also played really well under his guidance in his previous teams. His overall management style, we talked about, having a lot more of a possession-based football game. He does like to have 2 defensive midfielders, and we've seen McAllister and Gravenberg both sit in that position. But of course, when you're attacking, he does allow one of 2 midfielders to actually step forward and support the attack. And just going back to his performance so far with Liverpool, he has won 10 out of 12 games with Liverpool, the only 1 defeat coming against Nottingham Forest, and of course that 2-2 draw that happened last weekend against Arsenal. Other than that, he's won every game, and not just won, but I think I'd like to just say he's controlled the game and managed the game towards a victory. Many of the games we see Liverpool start off a little slow, very composed, patient build up. Even when they do lose the lead, they very quickly carve out an opportunity, but it's not hasty. It's not it's not an impatient approach. It's very well carved out and picked moments when they pick and score their goals. A very different approach, definitely, to what we're used to in the last decade. I definitely think Arne Slot is on the right track. He's doing all the right things. Of course, he's not signed any players. He's practically inherited a really strong squad. He's in a position where he's only made 1 signing for Federico Chiesa, and he's relying a little more on younger players to fill in the gaps when needed. Of course, contracts with specific players are important to be sorted out, but that is a different topic. Arne Slot himself, he focuses more on the team and coaching, and doesn't get too involved and sidetracked into contract negotiations and all the other bullshit stuff that we hear some of the reporters come out asking about, right? He's very, very football focused. He wants to talk about football. He wants to talk about his tactics. He wants to talk about how the game can get better, how he believes the team can perform better, and how he can improve specific players in the team, right? So, very, very down to earth man. Definitely sounds like he's got a very cool head screwed on there. He's definitely also very young, so we do know he will learn and get better with experience. He's not someone who is very emotional, and he's definitely not very rude, I would say, in the press conferences. He's really a very calm, composed individual. He knows how to handle himself. He knows how to handle the hard questions. He knows how to dance around on those questions as well. He's got really good PR skills, basically. That's what I'm saying. So, and that's being transitioned over to some of the key players. I noticed one of the interviews with Van Dijk previously, and even with Gravenberg. His style is starting to rub off onto the players, and the players are having this little bit of a calmness about them when they respond in interviews, and how they handle themselves on and off the pitch, and which is a good thing overall, right? You want that kind of professional development to handle the media. I mean, Liverpool, of course, always had that with players, and most professional teams do give their players specific training for that. But in this case, when it's is being done by the leader of the group, especially a head coach or a manager, and even the captain starts to pick up on it, eventually all the other players would learn from it too. And so that's a really good thing so far. So that brings us to the tail end of our show, ladies and gentlemen. So we have pretty much covered all the topics we wanted to talk about. We're all pretty excited about the game that's happening in a few hours. So it will be a 10 a.m. kickoff here in the U.S. Central Time Zone. Check your local listings. You definitely don't want to miss this game. It's always proven to be a very entertaining game between both sides. There will be goals. It will be end-to-end stuff. So, Brighton might be trying to come back from midweek with a little bit of revenge. So, a lot to look forward to for the game. Definitely, we will probably post up some post-match reactions. We'll try to do something next week, earlier in the week, rather than waiting to it's the Friday. We will have some reactions to the game, some analysis discussions, and build up to the next Premier League games the week after. So we're still fairly new. We touched on this before. We're growing. Please follow us on Instagram, the Austin's Anfield Angle. That is our IG handle. We are starting to make some effort to set up a YouTube channel, and hopefully we can upload podcasts on there too. So we're going from strength to strength, and we will soon be getting guests from some fan base and some soccer players that we know in the area to come share their opinions. Basically, this is going to be a platform for Liverpool fans to come in and talk about their views, their opinions, their concerns, and give them a platform to create more discussion on the team that we all love and enjoy watching, right? All right, so once again, thank you everyone for tuning in, and we look forward to hearing from y'all. Drop us a like, comment, give us a rating. And take part in our poll on Spotify. Let us know what you want to hear in the next show. We'll include maybe a 10-minute, 15-minute discussion session on that. And we'll try to be creating a little more different content over the weeks that come. So, once again, thank you very much, everyone. And we'll speak to y'all soon. Good night.